Thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Jabalani Ori, aka Jabu, and I'm a professional artist who loves to talk about visuals and games. Today we have a very special game, a game that I've been waiting to critique for about 2 months now. That game is none other than Death Stranding 2 on the beach. I am actually surprised at how much I was in tune with this game. And I believe that has a lot to do with the visual direction that Kojima and Kojima Productions have utilized in their game. So in this video, I will not be including any story spoilers. However, there might be a few visual things that you see in this video that might put certain things in context. And if you have a brain that's anything like my brain, just looking at an image can send your brain in a conceptual rabbit hole to the point where you end up questioning so much that you actually figure out and spoil the story for yourself. So if you're that type of person, please watch this video after you finish Death Stranding, because man, you're in for a ride. I spent over 125 hours playing it, so there's a lot to talk about. Starting with one of the greatest intros I've probably ever seen in a game. The intro to this game is phenomenal, and I don't mean to say that out of hype or as hyperbole. I love that word. I don't think I've ever witnessed a game that nails the cinematic aesthetics as well as Death Stranding 2 on the beach. The intro is an amazing setup to frame the events that will take place later on in the game. So those of us who played Death Stranding 1, we know that isolation is a major theme in Death Stranding, along with many other themes. But isolation is shown not in a frightening, scary way, because as human beings, we tend to fear isolation, but in a very beautiful way, in a way that makes you actually appreciate the openness that this world, our world, has to offer. And I really think the way they did it here with the panning over the vast deserts and mountain ranges was a perfect choice. And not only are they giving us this amazing view of what's to come, but they're also dotting and tucking away little clues in the form of cameos that relate to the first game as well as the second. And that actually made me feel very appreciated, especially because I've played the first game. So I recognized a lot of things that were placed in that intro, and it actually brought me back to moments when I struggled in the previous installment. This amazing intro sets up Death Stranding 2 with the mindset that you have to be patient. You have to patiently sit back and immerse yourself in the story that this development team worked for years to present to you. This intro ends so well. It ends with complete and utter confusion. As the player, I couldn't tell when the actual video ended and the gameplay began. The transition from actual footage to the graphics of the PlayStation 5, seamless, beautiful. That is one of the things I've always appreciated in games. And I think I started this with Final Fantasy VII. When you're running as Cloud through Midgar and he stops and pans and the camera pans up and it pans into a cutscene, that's the type of feeling that I had with this intro. It was masterfully done. The camera comes in, we see Sam and the introduction to Baby Lou, and it was done impeccably. As an artist, I felt like this team knows how to create their aesthetics, and I cannot wait to witness every second of this journey that they have crafted. Something that was very important to me and is very important to me in a lot of games, and this is why I tend to stick to a lot of story games, single player games, is the human element within its characters. And here, visually, it was done so well to the point where I felt like I was actually a part of this story, not just through gameplay, but actually through just viewing and taking in the emotions that these characters are illustrating through these graphics. Characters felt very alive in Death Stranding 2. And this should come to no surprise to any of us because they nailed the same thing in Death Stranding 1. But here I think they take that up a notch. I felt like even the look of Sam himself changed since part 1. And in Death Stranding 2, he seems like a seasoned porter, a seasoned veteran of delivering packages. That's not just true for him, that's true for other characters that end up coming back in the sequel as well. And I know the cutscenes in Death Stranding are being acted and presented to us through the talent of actual real life actors. But there's something about the way this team chose to present it here that made me completely forget that I'm looking at Norman Reedus and other actors that I've seen in real movies. While playing this game, I actually felt the emotion of the characters. And I know that sounds weird while taking in entertainment, but sometimes the entertainment just does it a little bit too well. Every emotion that they chose to act in this game, it felt genuine and felt real. Like when characters were being goofy, it felt goofy. When characters were expressing fear, it felt fearful. When characters were angry, I saw the angry. When characters were sad, I felt that sadness. And I remember a time in games where characters smiling, like from one of my favorite entries over here, Mass Effect, the Mass Effect series. Characters smiling in Mass Effect made them look psycho, straight up psycho. So the fact that in this game, this team pulls off smiling so well to the point where the emotions seem to transition into each other seamlessly, that to me is a huge step. I think that's a very big step. And it's in subtle ways. It doesn't seem as forced as I've seen it in other games. Here, it seems a much more gradual shift from one animated facial expression to the other. And even just looking at stills of the characters, because there are many moments where I'll pause a cutscene and I would literally take a screenshot and sit there and study how this team managed to put so much detail on every inch of all of these faces, and they come across so stunningly that in certain moments, certain characters, when they're telling you their story, it kind of felt too real. If that made any sense. It was very eerie feeling. Some of the characters really deal with loss. And when they're sitting there and they're telling you that story, it reminds you of when you dealt with loss. And I feel like that's the point. That's a point that a lot of people, they probably don't realize while they're playing this game. Death is actually woven into each and every aspect and angle of this entire game. And I feel like that is a testament to the sheer marvel of game design. And I'm not a designer, but I play a lot of games. So I play and experience the end result. And I can say for certain, for the decades that I've been playing, I truly believe this is a step in the right direction when it comes to presenting a story in a video game. Technology. So this game is made from the same man who brought us Metal Gear Solid. Metal Gear has very creative ways to display its technology. And it is no different in Death Stranding. In Death Stranding 1 and Death Stranding 2, especially 2, since that's the game we're talking about, technology is very futuristic, but looks very practical and functional. I remember being so captivated by Sam's gear, his delivery suit, his weapons, his various forms of boots with different functionality, as well as his vehicles. I remember being so enamored by how much detail I was able to discover while panning across in photo mode. I intentionally sat there and looked how parts would connect to other parts, as well as how things would animate, just to see if I can actually convince myself that the way the gears are configured is actually foolish. And at no point did I feel like, man, this connection here makes no sense. That's how well the technology and the tech is designed in this game. I grew attached to the vehicles. One of the saddest scenes in this entire game is when I had to leave behind a pickup truck, my pickup truck. That pickup truck I used for hours, and I kept upgrading the same pickup truck. And for those of you who play the game, you know it's very easy to get another pickup truck. But my pickup truck was my pickup truck, and I had to leave it behind. And it was one of the saddest things I've felt in a long time when it comes to a vehicle in a game. Leaving behind my time-fall, tattered truck. That truck delivered so many packages, and the fact that it carried me for miles and miles and miles really broke my heart. And I think that's because the tech looks wonderful. It looks wonderful. It looks too believable. It looks amazing. It looks amazing. So all of the tech in this game can be affected by various elements and conditions. I appreciate just how realistic everything looks as it comes in contact with the things you're wearing. So if Sam is in a dust storm and Sam runs through a river, half of his body will show dust and the lower half will show that his clothes is actually soaked. I feel like that is a great way to cement us, the players, into this world as being a realistic world. So fine details like that really go a very long way when it comes to immersion. If Sam is in a blood fight, he'll be soaked and drenched in blood. And I know we've seen this a lot of times in a lot of games, right? The blood-soaked hero. But for some reason, the blood on Sam just caked on him. It looked like it had a bit of weight and texture to it, and I really appreciate it. Timefall, I think is an effect that I absolutely love. The effect of rust, the effect of things aging, especially metallic things, looks so good it almost looks grotesque in a beautiful way. Another major character in this game that I think many people may overlook is actually the land. The land itself. The land that is responsible for painting you and your character in all of these various conditions is a character in itself. I have this thing I always say about Death Stranding. In Death Stranding, the true enemy of the game is not the terrorist or the BTs or whatever. The true enemy in Death Stranding is actually the terrain, the typography that your ass is going to be traveling over the entire course of the game. True players of Death Stranding know the ultimate villain is elevation.
Are you sure we should be traveling without the adventurer?
Because elevation will take your ass down quicker than any enemy.
Are you injured, Sam?
The landscape is literally the foundation of everything in this game. So tar bubbles up from the land, wraps around everything, floats up, BTs spawn from out the ground, hands from defeated BTs slowly morph into position, and the landscape frames and cradle all of this so well, so well. One of the things that I really like about the landscapes in Death Stranding is actually the vistas. Here, I felt like sometimes the vistas were so beautiful, it almost felt like a distraction, especially to us aesthetically tuned mind like myself. One of my favorite views of the vista, when you eventually make it up to the snowy hills in the mountains. And the game presents you with the common celestial body we all take for granted known as the moon. The game takes the moon and puts it so close to Earth that it literally takes up half the sky. And it just seems so serene, so still, so beautiful. And framing the moon is an amazing tapestry of beautiful stars. And a very cool thing that happens that also illustrates these vistas is actually the passage of time itself. As you're looking at the vista, you'll see the slow transition from deep blues to violets, purples, into pinks and oranges as the sun rises. And the opposite is also true. The passage of time looks so great on top of these landscapes. Man, it made me actually want to go outside and touch grass. And I did. While I was playing Death Stranding, I was able to take 2 trips, one to Hawaii and the other to Kenya. And I couldn't stop thinking about Death Stranding while I was away for those 3 weeks, especially Kenya. I was able to go in the wild amongst the wildlife. And I remember seeing landscapes that made me feel like I was in the world of Death Stranding. And it felt great. And I feel like that is a very good sign. That is a very good thing. That is a very, very, very good thing. Because that means that the game presents the world that we live in so well that it gracefully mimics actual vistas in real life. Man, that's marvelous. The final visual element that I would like to talk about is something that has intrigued humanity since the beginning of our existence. And that is death. It's in the title. The beauty of death in Death Stranding 2. So one of the things I would like to point out is actually something that my brother and I, Blue, talked about when we were talking about Death Stranding. And that is how the game uses certain religious and cultural iconography to illustrate death. My brother pointed out to me that there is a lot of Egyptian iconography in this game. The deep black richness of the tar juxtaposed against the contrast of the most beautiful shimmering gold you'll see in graphics. Sometimes when you defeat an enemy, the landscape literally goes from a depressing dark landscape to a beautiful enriching display of gold particles. So every time I would see the tar, which I think actually ironically reminds me of the void of space and the void of the unknown. And I think it was crazy how the tar actually animates. Liquid in general in this game is just gorgeous. But there's something about the tar as it's reaching up to grab you into the void, like literally into the void, or towards an enemy or to death itself. Literally reminds me of how people in Egyptian culture speak of death as being a journey, like a passage of sorts. And I feel like in this game, there was something very beautiful about it. So at my age, and many of you are my age, many of you are around between 35 and 40, we've lost some people. I lost one of my best friends a few years back, my grandfather and my grandmother. So it's a part of life. It's a part of life. And yes, it's very, very painful, but there's something beautiful about it. There's something beautiful about knowing that that person doesn't have to suffer anymore. There's something beautiful in remembering that life and those moments. This is why I love the world of Death Stranding so much, not just visually, but conceptually. The fact that life and death are pretty much side by side, and you're constantly interacting with both of them, sometimes without even knowing it. So just like life, in Death Stranding, we see the youthfulness of a baby, the fragileness of an old man who I'm considering to be Sam at this point, are literally side by side on the entire journey. Even this same Egyptian iconography reflects the ancient times, while that sits right next to the technology that you're using, which reflects the future. So I think that in the visuals, it's literally showing life and how existence is literally the past and the future. It's so crazy. It's so crazy. And this is the dangers of playing a Kojima game, because you start questioning everything. And I don't know if this is his intent, but this is what happens when I play his games. This game is literally a reminder that death, as strange as it may seem, and as scary and as frightening as it is integral to our stories as human beings. And I think that is the true purpose of Death Stranding. I can't wait for the next installment. Please make another one. So in conclusion, I would like to say this is one of my favorite games I've played in a very, very long time. And I feel like I keep saying that. So I played Rebirth, Expedition 33, Elden Ring. The list goes on and on and on. But no, I mean it. Here I felt like, man, this is a step up. This is a step up for me, at least. The game just felt very meaningful. It didn't just feel like entertainment. It felt like an experience, like it's trying to tell you something. And certain movies, songs, and video games do that, and I feel like it was definitely accomplished here. Now, is the game for you if you haven't played the game? I think so. I think you should give it a shot, especially if you can find it on sale, because I know the asking price is a tall order for games nowadays, but for me it was worth every cent. And to top it off, the music in the game is just as potent as the visuals. The game literally made me a fan of Woodkid, -61, that guy. Before Death Stranding 2, I had no idea who Woodkid was, but I've heard his music. His music is in Arcane on Netflix. So I've heard his music before, but here his work was masterful. And I feel like it's a great companion to the visuals and the storytelling and the gameplay. The gameplay is actually very good. I am now a Woodkid fan. In fact, I have it playing in my headphones right now. So if you're on the fence about Death Stranding 2, I would recommend getting it. And while you're playing it, if you get bored of delivering packages, you can take a break. I took 3 weeks off to travel, and I feel like that really broke up the game in a nice way. It left me wanting more when I stopped playing. And I came back and the rest of it was great. It was excellent. So I would definitely give Death Stranding a shot. And one last thing before I wrap this up. Shout out to Doll Man. Doll Man was my favorite character. I love all the characters, but Doll Man was my ride or die. Doll Man. I like Doll Man. Shout out to Doll Man and all the people who like Doll Man. I really hope they make a little Doll Man figure and sell that, because I'm buying it. So, as I said earlier in the beginning of the video, my name is Jabulani Ori, a lifelong artist who loves to talk about the visuals in games. If you would like to see my work, you can head over to my website. It is jahbu.com. I have over 30 paintings on there that I've worked on for the last 7 years. Let me know what you think. If you're on social media and would like to see more of my art side, you can follow me on Instagram or TikTok, simply at JAHBU_art, ART. So I'm currently playing Unicorn Overlord, amazing game, and enjoying that. And I plan on starting either Shinobi, Silent Hill F, or Ghost of Yotei. There's so many games. There's so many games. I don't even know what's going to take place in the next coming weeks. But I know I'll be playing something. Until next time, my wonderful, amazing, beautiful people. One love. Peace. Like.